All electrolyte and hydration mixes and drinks are not created equal. I mean, check the ingredients. They have sugar or sugar alternatives, and there's tons of added stuff. Allow me to introduce you to the best electrolyte mix, Light Balance, Lyte balance.com. It's a naked electrolyte mix, which means no preservatives, no sweeteners, no flavoring, no caffeine or gluten, and no calories. I'm always on the search for the best hydration, and I've found it. My entire family uses it, and I use it on all my runs. It solved all my hydration issues. Your body needs magnesium, potassium, and sodium, which Light Balance conveniently provides in liquid or powder form. Pure, powerful hydration. Light Balance. Go to lytebalance.com. Our guest today on the Mental Toughness podcast, we'd like to spotlight, I think, one of college basketball's most enduring leaders. With over 40 seasons at the helm of Oakland University basketball's longest tenured coach at one institution. Our guest has racked up more than 700 wins during his career. He's led his team to multiple NCAA tournament appearances. He won the Horizon League championship, also won the Horizon League tournament. Our guest has earned a place in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. Excited for this conversation today. Coach Greg Kampe. Coach, man, thanks for joining us, taking the time.
My pleasure. I really enjoy these types of things. Anytime we can get together and talk basketball or talk philosophical ideas and help people that are in our business, that's a great thing. I appreciate you for doing it.
Absolutely. Well, let's start off with Roy Hobbs. I mean, you had an affinity for Roy Hobbs, I assume.
Oh, I just love the movie. I like the character. I like the actor. I thought the movie, when he got shot early in the movie, it was a surprise, and then his journey, was really cool. It's probably, and then of course all the theatrics at the end when the ball hits the lights, and it's just for me being a sentimental old guy. I think I just love that movie.
Yeah. Well, it was my favorite sports movie of all time, and I've seen that thing, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of times, know every single line for it. So when I heard you pull that out one time in the conversation, then it was just automatically drawn to you.
Yeah, it's
No.
amazing how that works, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm a bit of a romantic, but my favorite part of that movie, The Natural, was right before he hits it, when the guys are on first and third base, cheering him on, and everything that's going on there. That was always my fantasy too. I always wanted to be there with the bases loaded, um, hitting the home run. Um, I'm more flied out than hit the home run, but
at
no,
least you
I
hit it.
yeah.
Uh,
Coach, you were a big Michigan sports fan growing up. I mean, your dad was a huge football fan. Your brother played for the team. Talk to us about your affinity growing up, being a Michigan fan.
well, I grew up. The first word I ever said was Michigan. My dad was on the 1947 Michigan National Championship football team. Um, so all my whole life, people from that team would come to our house, and he would host uh, a group of them every summer and play ping pong. And back in the when life was a little more simple than it is today. So, they would come to my house and bump and Pete Elliott and, some of the all-time great Michigan uh, players that played on that national championship team. Then my brother played for Bo in the early 70s during the 10-year war. He was there 5 years. He got injured and had a redshirt year. He won like three Big Ten championships and never went to the Rose Bowl. It was in that time. But I spent pretty much every Saturday in Michigan's football stadium. And that was before that's before there were 100,000 there. We used to go in there, and in the first quarter we'd sit in this end zone, and then in the second quarter we'd go under the press box. Then we might go down, or I mean there were only like 40,000 people there at that time. And then when Boch and Don Canham changed all that. So yeah, I grew up a huge Michigan fan.
No, I love that, Coach. Um, it's awesome, especially since you had such connection then to that university. With that said, I mean, you've been coaching Oakland since 1984. Um, did you see the movie Air by chance?
I did not.
Oh,
I,
okay. It's fantastic, mostly because of the soundtrack too. But it's just following Sonny Vaccaro and then the signing of Jordan with Nike.
uh,
And highly recommend it.
I,
Back in the 80s. Go
I
ahead,
did
coach.
see I did see the movie where Jordan's with Nike, but was called Air.
Yeah, Matt Damon.
Oh yeah, I did. No, I did see that. That is a.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking when we were talking baseball, when Hobbs and said Air, I was thinking, things that I used to do on the field, the errors,
Yeah, yeah.
you said air, AIR. So yeah, I did see that movie. That
Yeah, I didn't mean to switch
tremendous.
on you for that one.
Yeah, tremendous movie. I really enjoyed that movie.
Who was back in the 80s, like who was one of your favorite players like you really loved watching?
Well, as a kid in the 60s and 70s, Al Kaline was my hero. I mean, Al Kaline, and it's crazy. I got to meet him and ended up one of the coolest things in my life. I got to meet Al, and we actually played a lot of golf together at the end of my career. I'll never forget his first voicemail he left me. I I uh I sent it to my brothers and sisters. This I talked to Al Kay. I mean, it was like, I mean, I used to wear number six and walk around the house and call myself, so he was my real hero. But basketball wise, Pete Maravich was my favorite player. I was a
Yep.
big Pete Maravich, and in football was Joe Namath. So I was kind of attracted to the hot dogs back in those days, other than Al Kaline. Al Kaline,
Right.
I will say this, the nicest person, the nicest person I've ever met who was a superstar. I mean, this guy he was unbelievable, just the nicest guy.
Hmm. My uncle, um, Tigers fan, big Al Kaline fan. So always loved him. So I never got introduced to him until as my uncle talking about his favorite player, which is Al Kaline, and same exact thing. Just an incredible player, incredible person. To kind of transition to you, coach, with you've prided yourself on never really, I mean, having enemies in the field, and I mean, you've always carried yourself with respect, and I mean, I think people would look at you as the same way. I mean, being just a really great guy, wouldn't you?
I don't, I'm not going to guess how they would think of me. I personally have tried, I had some early in my coaching career, I had some run-ins and some, you know, but I learned that, that I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be, you know what, competition's competition and we're going to fight and scratch, but let's go have a meal afterwards. And, there's no reason, in my opinion, everybody's fighting for the same thing. So, you know, I, I've always felt that it's important that, especially as I've gotten older, I've felt that, when I talk to a coach after a game, I can tell a quick story if you want. Um,
Please.
I was a 28-year-old head coach and at Oakland, and we practiced, you know, the Detroit Pistons practiced in our gym before they built the practice facility. They were out at the Palace of Auburn Hills, and before that, they were at the Silverdome, which is located right by both those facilities were located. They're both gone now, but they were both located right by our campus. So the Pistons practiced at our place, and I remember when I was my first year, I went up to Chuck Daly and I said, would you show me a really good baseline out of bounds play? And so back in those days, there were chalkboards, not whiteboards, So he's got a
Mhm.
piece of chalk and he's drawing it up. And in the middle of it, I interrupt him and I say, well, what if you like, my mind was already thinking, oh, this is a good play, but I can make it better, right? And he looked at me and you know, he might have called me a name and he might have said, I thought you wanted to hear from me. I really have no interest in hearing from you today, but if you'd like to hear from me, I'll finish this play. And it took me, by surprise. And then he was very standoff. I went to their practice every day, and he was very standoffish to me until we played Cleveland State. And by then I had started to learn, where I really stood in the coaching profession. And Raleigh Massimino was coaching at Cleveland State, and he had won the national championship, and he was a coach. and he and Chuck Daly were really, really close. And I, after the game, I shook Raleigh Massimino's hand and I looked at him straight in the face and I said, "It was an honor to be on the same court with you today, Coach. I can't tell you how much I appreciated the fact that I got to coach against you." The next day, Chuck Daly called me and invited me to lunch.
Hmm.
And we went to lunch, and from that point on, Chuck and I became pretty close. And he wanted to share with me, coaching ideas and that. Um, because he thought I matured and turned into as he called it, a lifer, a guy that wants to be a coach and it's in the business for the right reason. And that has really, I mean, that was many years ago now. And that's really my mission as a coach, is that, I want to be I want to be a lifer. I want to be a guy that helps other coaches. And I don't ever want to leave an arena and that coach is mad at me or thought wasn't, what would be the right word? I wasn't respectful of the game, respectful of him and what his mission is. And sportsmanship is really important to me.
Fantastic story, Coach.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, especially with the lesson then that came from that one. On on that note, Coach, I mean, as with basketball, but life is a team sport. I don't think we always got that early on growing up. But could you just kind of talk about that a little bit deeper in terms of, I notice watching your games and the games I've been to, I mean, you allow your coaches a lot of leeway. They'll lead a lot of those drills, they'll lead a lot of those timeouts. But talk to us about like life in terms of being a team sport.
I've gotten, obviously as coaches, we get asked to speak a lot because we build teams, right? And the world, especially the business world, wants to build teams and they want to build a culture. And coaches are supposed to do that. So I get to speak a lot, and that's kind of become a theme of my speeches, is that especially with today's younger generation, because they're not really being taught that. The younger generation is being taught, you get one chance. It's your chance. Do what's best for you. And they've been taught that since they were 5, 6, 7 years old. This is your chance, son, lady, whatever. So do what's best for you. And I think it's the wrong message, because it's your chance to affect your life. And your life isn't very good by yourself. Your life is going to be fantastic when it's integrated with other people. And being able to understand and integrate with people and being able to be part of a team and understanding that what a team accomplishes is so much better, so much greater than any one thing that a person can accomplish. And I will tell you, I've been lucky enough to have been involved in many, many things that have been accomplished. I've been fortunate in my life that the teams that I've been involved with have accomplished great things. And those moments and those memories are shared. There's nothing I've ever done that I got an individual award for that I even think about or talk about. I mean, you said that about the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I've gone into maybe 7 or 8 halls of fames. And in every one of those, the speech that I had to give, when I preparing that speech, I realized it's all about the people that helped me get there. It was nothing about what I did. It was because I was surrounded with great people. I was able to, as an individual player, I had great coaches. I had great teammates. As a coach, I've had tremendous players. I've had great assistants. I've had all these people that have lifted me up. And that's what a team does. They lift each other up. And so life really is a team sport, whether it's your business, whether it's your family, whether it's what you're trying to accomplish. You're never going to accomplish anything worth anything by yourself, because you only have yourself if it's all done by yourself, you only have yourself to share it with, right? And
Hmm.
that can get old, right? I mean, being able to share things, being able to, cut nets down and watch everybody. And when we win championships and cut nets down. We have somebody from the band. We have somebody from the cheer squad. We have somebody from I have our president cut it down. I have board members cut it down because we all did. Without the president, I wouldn't have the money to spend to in today's age to get players. Without the board of trustees and without the athletic director, without the cheer squad, without the band, we wouldn't we wouldn't accomplish this. We're all part of it. So that's a long answer, but I just think if I can get that across to people that I talk to, that the most important thing that we have is life being is a team sport. And if we can all do that, maybe life will get a lot better for everybody.
Coach, on that note, because that 100% makes sense, and I resonate with it and agree with it. How how does that message align then if we're talking to just youth in terms of that? Because I think if you get presented with the I need to do what's best for me, um, they might pay lip service to that team approach. But where does that line get crossed, coach, in terms of like, hey, that's fine to be focused on you and your goals, but in terms of the team, like where does that connection get made, do you think?
Well, I don't think it can be made. We're all products of our environment. That's probably one of the most profound things I've ever heard in my life when people say that. And being that I've recruited people from every environment, I can attest to it. The young men that come here are products of their environment. And so we have to get to the people. I think the template of leadership has changed, and our leadership has got to be different. And the leadership to the young people has got to be different. There's three things that I'm really preaching right now. One is that life is a team sport. Two is the respect of authority. We've completely lost respect of authority, and it's not just the kids. I mean, just look at the political nature of our country right now. There's and maybe I believe you don't have to agree with authority. I agree that you can question authority, but we have to respect it. And we just have lost that for the police, for the people in charge, for the president, for the Congress people. And many of them don't deserve our respect at sometimes, with what happens. But the idea that we have to respect authority. If we don't, we're heading down the wrong path. And then the third thing that I think is very, very important is that the way we teach our youth, right? The way that we communicate to our youth, we have to get where we find out what they value, right? And we can't pound into them, it's all about you, it's all about you, because then the only thing they're going to value is themselves. And we have to pound into them. um, you know, we have these things that we value, like in coaching. uh, as a coach, I value certain things. As a player, the players value certain things. I have to understand what they value so I can lead them. Or the leaders of my team have to understand what I value so they can lead our team. It's a communication process. And the idea of the old days where the leader is out front pulling people, or some people said the leader's out back pushing people, those days are gone. I think you have to be arm in arm with your people, walking side by side, arm in arm together, and that's how you lead. I don't think there's out front or behind. I just
Mm.
just I think it's changed. The big thing for many years was servant leadership, right? There's books on it and in theory, it's a great, great concept in theory. And it used to really work, but it doesn't work today because the young people growing up, they don't understand what servant is because they've been served their whole lives. You know what I'm saying? They've been told how good they are. They've been told it's about them. And every mistake they've made, their people that love them have tried to fix it for them.
Hmm.
And if you talk to Tom Izzo or some of the old school, boy, that's the big thing with them is, you know, the kids don't know how to fail anymore. I've heard Frank Martin speak on it. I've heard a lot of great, great older coaches talking that we're losing this idea that I'm fixing all your failures and the kids themselves don't get to fix them. You know, I've failed many times in my life, and I've always feel I'm a lot stronger by figuring out how to overcome my failures, not to have my
Hmm.
mom or my dad or my coach or my advisor or whoever fix it for me. I need to fix it myself. And I
Right.
need to fail. I need to fail. I can't always have success. I need to fail.
Coach, you were a big Sparky Anderson fan growing up. I mean, the managerial style, though, differs. I mean, what were some of the ways then you kind of look back that you always talk about adapt or die? What were some of those ways then that you've adapted your coaching style throughout the years?
Well, yeah, Sparky Anderson. I mean, I think one of the greatest managers of all time, and being a huge Tiger fan and being from Detroit and all that kind of stuff is, of course, you're gonna, gravitate to the people that you watch, the people that you heard, especially when they win. And Sparky was a my way or the highway guy, right? You're going to do this my way. This is how it is. Again, this is how the leadership role has changed over time. When it's my way or the highway, you get everybody to conform because this is how you win and you know that this is how the team's supposed to be. Um, and so I've really changed because I was that way for many years. And then, you started to see, I like to tell this story a lot too, and I'll do it. So 30 years ago, if I ask a kid to jump, their response was how high,
Hmm.
right? You were taught that. Your dad taught you that. How if coach tells you to jump, you say how high. You want to be great, you tell them how high, right? 10 or 15 years ago, if I ask a kid to jump, he'd say why. Not that he wouldn't do it, but he wanted to know why. I mean, the life has changed, and uh, the kids in that they wanted to. Well, they'll do it, but they want to know why. Today, if I ask a kid to jump, he's going to say, "I'll do it," but how much are you going to pay me, right? Because that's just the culture right now. Is I should be paid for what I'm doing. I've worked so hard. You need to pay me. There's a lot of money out there. You're making money. Why shouldn't I? I mean, 18-year-old kids. Um, so as life changes, you have to adapt to that because I think Sparky Anderson trying to do it his way or Bob Knight trying to do it his way today would not survive. Um, so to survive, you have to adapt. And I used to be a guy that everybody wore the same shoes. Everybody wore this. You couldn't come out to practice without something gear on that we gave you. You couldn't have your own gear. The same, everybody's wearing the same undershirt, everybody's wearing the same socks, everybody's wearing. And then Steph Curry goes out and wins the NBA championship and is the MVP, averages 40 some points a game in the NBA finals wearing purple shoes. Well, every kid in the world that wants to be Steph Curry wants those purple shoes now, right? And so why would I even battle with those guys when they show up, and they want to wear the shoes Steph wore, or they want to maybe wear pink shoes or, this color shoe, or because they're heroes. I remember when Al Kaline did something, I wanted to do it. So, well, I don't think they have heroes like that today. They still, they love LeBron, they love this player, and whatever that player does, they want to do. So why would I tell them no? And what does it really matter today? Back in the day, that's how it was, but today it's not like that. So I've gotten rid of all that kind of stuff. The only non-negotiable I have anymore, you have to do your academics, but that's not my non-negotiable because if you don't, you're not going to be here anyways. Because if you don't go to school and you don't maintain a certain GPA and stuff like that, so while that could be a non-negotiable, it's a school non-negotiable. It's not a camping non-negotiable. The only non-negotiable I have is on time. You got to be on time. And again, that goes to life's a team sport. You're not more important than everybody else. Life is a team sport. And, if we practice at 10 o'clock and you get here at 10:01, you're not going to practice that day. I'm not going to hold it against you unless it becomes habitual. You just can't be with us that day. You got to leave the facility. Um, if the bus leaves at 4:45. I was going to say a quarter to five, but our guys don't know what a quarter to five is anymore because all they've seen is digital their whole lives. If the bus leaves at 4:45 and you get there at 4:46, the bus won't be there. That's the only non-negotiable I have anymore. It's just the timing. And if I have to teach that to the young men that play for me, because no matter what anybody says, that's the one negotiable out in the real world that you know, nobody cares. Nope.
Hmm.
They have to understand it because their whole lives they've been pampered and told how great they are and all the things fixed for them. But when they get in real life, nobody cares about them. Nobody does. Life goes on. It's been going on for 100,000 years or whatever without you. And just because you've come in it, it's not changing. And so I
Hmm.
have to teach them that. I have to teach them the value of time.
Coach, with the bus, one of the things that you changed was not riding on the bus with the team, allowing that space. Now, obviously, I mean, if they're flying, you fly with them, but even those rides are different. Talk to us about how that has made a difference then, and if you want to unpack it further, but how has that made a difference in how you coach, how you lead?
Yeah, the the unintended consequences of not going on the bus have been fantastic for me. I mean, I did this and didn't know that these things were going to happen. Um, when COVID hit, we had to take a COVID car just because now we're in a bus league. So um, we charter to Green Bay and Milwaukee, but all the other teams, the other 9 teams in our league, are all a 2 hour to 3 hour bus ride. So if we're playing um, Cleveland State, we're gonna on a Thursday night, we're gonna bus down there on Wednesday night, spend the night, practice, and shoot around there, and then play the game. But we needed to take a extra car during COVID in case somebody tested positive. Then we put them in a car and drive them home. We couldn't have them in a bus. So that's how it started. And so I said, Coach Smith and I decided we were going to drive the COVID car. And so we started in there. And it was just, for me personally, I was getting older in life, not sitting on a bus for 3 hours, even though it's like, the Greyhound or the charter bus, it really, I felt so much better physically. So I said, I'm going to do this from now on. After the COVID year was over, we're going to take a car and I'm going to or drive my car. And Smitty and I have been doing that for the last 5 years. And I think it's going to extend my life in coaching 5 or 6 extra years because I don't have to, do that. But the unintended consequences were life is so much better for those kids because I'm not on that bus and I'm not the anal guy that's, if you lose, I'm not there, getting mad because I hear some kid laughing in the back after a loss and I think he doesn't, want to win as bad as I do. When we stop for dinner, I'm not there. I don't get mad at the restaurant because it's not set up exactly how I want it or the food's bad or, you know, it's so much better for me because it takes all these little things that used to piss me off. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not, I just get and I go to the hotel and I wait for him. And then when, we do our shoot arounds and our film sessions and all that, I'm not there. We had a rule that when they ate, they couldn't use their cell phone. I didn't want them on their phones. I want them to interact with players. One of the, every 4 years you're allowed to go on a foreign trip, and we've done that. And when we're on that foreign trip, it's so much better when they can't use their phones and they're interacting and they're talking to each other and that. So I would notice that at meals that they're all looking at their phone, checking scores, doing whatever they're doing, and nobody's talking to anybody. So we put a rule, and now I'm not there to enforce that rule. I'm not there getting mad because somebody's checking their phone or something. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? It just and it gives my assistant coaches some authority. Anytime you allow your assistants more authority, I think it's great. It's great in their ability to become a head coach someday, and also in the trust that you have in them and that the players have in them.
Yeah. Now, if you're struggling with soreness, pain, or inflammation, you need to check out Stamina Pro recovery patches. Developed for over 15 years, the clinically proven technology of Stamina Pro is free from all chemicals, all pharmaceuticals, all drugs, and it's 100% safe for athletes. I only promote products that I use myself, and Stamina Pro takes care of all my training needs, pain, and soreness. If you use the code DRB15, you get 50% off, or use the link below. Stamina Pro. That's fantastic, Coach. When I heard that, I just wanted to delve into that further. I love the unintended consequences as well. Totally relates. With your coaches, again, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, but you allow them a lot of freedom. I mean, I remember especially a couple of baseline out of bounds plays. You're not even in that huddle, and that's getting run. Talk to us about like throughout your progression, and then how that kind of translates. But I mean, you allow them a lot of leeway, a lot of space, a lot of latitude to coach as well. Can you mention that and talk to that?
Well, I think that again, it goes back to it's a team, right? It's a team. I've got guys that, they work their tails off. They're invested just as bad as I'm invested. And I have to give them, I mean, obviously there's got to be a single decision maker. And trust me, that's me. And I take input, but I'm making the decisions. But there's, like in practice, our defense, Jeff Smith's heavily involved in our defense. And I give him, I'm to the point where I don't even, here's Jeff, you've got 20 minutes on defensive breakdown today. It's your world. All right. That gets him even more invested. That gets him, the pride that he has a lot to do with what we do defensively as we game plan. Bobby, he does all the offense of the. So we're playing Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. What do we think Kentucky's going to do against us? Bobby's in charge of that. And he's got 15 or 20 minutes at every practice to have the kids do what Kentucky's going to do and know it. And I can't do all that. I did in the old days, but I'm surely not going to do it as well as all four of us doing it all together. And the biggest thing though is my players understand how much I trust and believe in my staff. Well, then they're going to trust and believe in them too. And there are times like a timeout during a game where Bobby or Smitty or Trey will come up to me and say, they're doing this and we need to make this adjustment. And instead of me and you're right, but instead of me sitting down and showing them the adjustment on the whiteboard, I'll just say to Bobby, sit down, show them. You do it,
Mhm.
right? Um, this year we were struggling with our baseline out of bounds plays because, you know, I, we've been doing them for so long. People are starting to, maybe they have a book on us because I've used these. So I told each one to come up with a new baseline out of bounds play, and I let them put it in, and we ran them. And just to keep it fresh, but more importantly to keep them engaged. And I want when I walk away from a loss, it's death. I want it to be death for them too. And on the other side of that, when we walk away from a win, you know, they have to understand it's not happiness. When you're invested, you understand. If you're not invested and you win, you go home and you celebrate. If you are invested and you win, you go home and worry about the next game because the next game's more important now. You never get to celebrate. When you're invested and I think you do a good job in this business, you never celebrate, you're never happy.
Mhm.
Chuck Daly used to say, never trust happiness. And I took that. I'm never happy. You know, there's there's some relief. And if you call that happiness, I guess you can, but there's a lot of relief after a win. But then straight line to the next one. We beat Kentucky and within 13, within 30 minutes, I was ready for North Carolina State. It wasn't, hey, beat our chest and go out. Now, when I went out on the floor and I saw our fans, I might have given a fist bump or something like that, right? But again, it was a relief. We get to play again. Our
Mhm.
season wasn't over. It wasn't, hey, look at us. We beat Kentucky. It was, hey, we get to play again. And now if we win the next one, we're going to the Sweet 16, right? That's how a coach has to think. And I want my staff to think that way too. I don't ever want them, to be celebrating. I want them to be focused on the next task.
Yeah. No, and I love that, Coach. I appreciate you unpacking that. I always kind of subscribe to if you win, you feel good for a day. If you lose, you feel bad for a week in terms of NFL coaching. But with that said, one of the pieces that Joe Madden talked about was win hard for 30, lose hard for 30. He would allow them that time and space to feel good, and then also, but when it's going to be over, it's going to be over. How have you adapted then throughout like your after games? I've never really was a big after game like listen to coach pontificate stuff like that because I just think times change. Like I would see a lot of players kind of tune out, but did that change throughout your style throughout the history?
I want my guys, again, I want my players to be happy. What I was just talking about was my staff, not my player. I want my players
Right.
to be really happy. I want them to love winning. I want them to celebrate. I will say this, a, a quick story on that. The year we beat, 2 years ago when we beat Kentucky in the NCAA tournament, many people reached out to me afterwards because CBS was in our locker room. And many people reached out to me afterwards and said, um, you your guys expected to win that game, didn't they? And I go, yeah, we did. Why do you say that? And they go, because they weren't going crazy in the locker room. They weren't, shooting water guns and doing all the things that people do now. And there's a little bit of a more so we had beaten Xavier at Xavier in that same year. And to win at the Cintas Center against the Sean Miller team that doesn't happen very often, right?
Hmm.
It happens maybe in their league, but a non-league game where they're paying you to come doesn't happen very often. So the game ended and I had to do, Fox was there. I did Fox TV and then I went and did my own radio. And then when I got to the locker room there, all the kids were in the locker room. This was like the sixth game of the year.
Yep.
And all the kids were in the locker room with their water and they were ready to spray it on me. I walked in and I said, no. I said, let's act like we've been there. I said, let's save this celebration for later in the year when it really means something, because this is just one game. It's a great win and we're going to enjoy it, but let's act like we expected to do it. And they all looked at me and they were like, yeah, yeah, okay. And I said to them, I don't want to take your joy away. Enjoy it. Let's have fun, but we're a great team. We got a chance to be special. Let's channel this and become special. I think I said, let's put this in our back pocket. And when we get in the NCAA tournament, let's remember that we can win games like this, right? It's right there in my back pocket. So I think because of that, that's why they acted the way they did after the Kentucky game. Now, I also sit back and wonder, did I steal some joy from them? Because you watch you watched Illinois and my good friend uh, Underwood comes in there with goggles on so it's, I don't know. But that's who we are.
Yeah. Into the Kentucky game, coach. So, I mean, that season you obviously had a Final Four team. Um, I mean, you played Ohio State really strong that year. Illinois at their places, you won at Xavier, and then going into that game, I mean, you know the confidence that you had in your team. I love the game plan. I was wondering maybe if you could just start with that because the game plan I mean, obviously Kentucky was a great 3-point shooting team, one of the best in the nation, but you made them shoot these mid-range shots and didn't matter if they were open. Um, which I just love the game plan of how that played out. And then that were a younger team. And that actually, I mean, you could see it later in the game. You had an experienced team where leadership, they looked like they were more experienced. What stands out to you about that?
I think what stands out is what we just talked about with the Xavier, and we had led Ohio State for like 35 minutes, got a really bad call with 50 seconds to go. We should have been ahead. The call went against us, and they made an inbounds play for a three, and then we go to Illinois 2 days later, and we lead for many of it. We're up, I think we're up two with 7 minutes to go at Illinois, and Illinois went to the Elite Eight that year. So it wasn't, I mean, that was a really good Illinois team. So
That's a tough place to win too, isn't it, Coach?
it's one of the top five
Yeah.
hardest. Yeah. There, Kansas, Gonzaga, Michigan State, those are really, really difficult places to win, especially for a mid-major team. Um, so we knew we were good. We knew we could play with anybody. Um, so I forgot what the question is. You got me thinking of
Sorry about that, Coach. Just about the Kentucky game and kind
all
of,
this.
yep.
Yeah. The So we went into that and we really, really liked the matchup. And we liked the matchup because they were the top 3-point shooting team in the country, and our zone can take the three away. It can. And most people think you play zone, you give up the three, and there are zones that give up the three, but you can also adjust and make adjustments in game. And we knew that their post players scored off rebounds and putbacks. Their post players were not, they didn't run plays to them. They didn't, they weren't going to make 10-foot, 15-foot jump shots. And so we tweaked the zone. And I remember watching the game afterwards. Um, Lapis was the analyst, and he kept saying, "I can't believe that Oakland's giving up. They can't give up that 15-foot jump shot. It's just too open." And no, that was we wanted them to shoot that shot. We wanted those guys. And then Cal made a great adjustment. He put Reed Shepherd into the middle of it, but Reed couldn't make a shot that night. He only had 3 points. And then they put the other kid whose dad was such a great player. He's now with him at Arkansas. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but they put him in there, and they just really struggled to make shots. And I think at one point they were 2 for 16 from 15 feet, and we dared them to shoot it too. We didn't attack them. We dared them to shoot. We just said if they turn the shot down and drive it, then you attack. But just let them look at that. Let them look at that wide open shot. And the great thing was they made the first one.
Yeah.
You always want them to make if you're going to dare a guy to shoot, you always want him to make the first one because then he's saying, "Yeah, I can make this," right?
Yep.
Um, and so that kept us in the game and gave us a chance. Golke obviously, uh, you know, kept gave us the lead, and then Trey Townsend was really good down the stretch. But the whole game plan, the NBA shoots the 15-foot jump shot at about 38%. The elbow jump shot, the NBA shoots it at about 36%. So we're hoping that Kentucky was going to shoot it at about 26%, and we got lucky that night they did.
Hmm. Coach, you win that game as a Hinge moment for you, but then you have to turn around and get ready for NC State, and that was also a fantastic game as well with who ended up going to the Final Four. When you kind of reflect then and on that, does losing hurt worse than winning feels good?
Well, if you talk to any coach that's done it, I was going to say as long as I have, but not many have done it as long as I have. So, because they're smart and they get out. Uh, but if you've talked to any coach that's had a long career, and you ask them, name the three best wins they've had, they'll probably not be able to name one. But you ask them the three most memorable things, and they'll have three losses. You know, I still wake up at night with nightmares of the NC State, the last 17 seconds of that game. And it's been over a year, right? And I mean, yesterday, and this is honest God truth, I'm not saying this because we're doing this show today. Yesterday, um, I walk a lot, and I did a 4 or 5 mile walk. I think it was 4.7 was what my phone
Hmm.
said when I was done walk. And I would tell you that took me a little bit more than an hour and 15 minutes. And I would tell you of that 75 minutes, 65 of them were spent on that NC State game still. What should I have done different? Why did I called a timeout I should have never called. And I'm never going to live that down in my own mind. They had a great player in DJ Burns, but he wasn't real good defensively.
Hmm.
And, he's a big, strong dude, big guy. And
Hmm.
by me calling timeout with 15 seconds to go, that allowed them to substitute him out, and the guy they put in deflected the ball that made us not get the shot off. And
Right.
we could have easily, that was a great team. We could have easily, they were smart. They've been there. They were veterans, and we didn't need a timeout. We needed the coach we're going to run this play at 8, right? We didn't need that timeout. And I'm never going to live that down. It's going to haunt me the rest of my life for an Oakland to be 10 seconds away. And Trey Townsend had 34 points. He was killing it. We were going to get him the ball. He was either going to miss, get fouled, or make, right?
Right.
One of those three things was going to happen. And I could have lived with that. That's really, now it's hard. So in answering your question, I would tell you any coach. You talk to John Calipari, he's going to probably talk about the Oakland game, right? As being the you talk to Izzo, and he's going to tell you about the game that kept him from winning the national championship. You talk to Rick Barnes, he's going to talk to you about his Elite Eight games where he almost made it. There's any
Right.
coach that's done it for a long time. They don't. We're supposed to win. They pay us to win. We believe we're going to win. So those don't mean, those don't mean much. Those losses mean everything.
So 65 minutes, coach, of that walk.
Easily. Maybe 70 of the 75. It was a beautiful day, which we haven't had many of those in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Mother's Day was a beautiful day. And I got out there, and I don't know why, but I'm walking, and first thing that came to my mind was, you know, I think it might have been because I was watching an NBA playoff game. And whatever happened in that game made me think, basketball. And I got thinking, and something happened in that game, and bam, started thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm telling you, I'll wake up three nights a week right now. And it's been 14, 16 months. Before that, it was our Michigan State game. We played Michigan State. They were number one in the country. And Kay Felder in 2015 or 16, a ball rolled around the rim. If it goes in, we beat the number one team in the country. In front of 20,000 people at the Palace of Auburn Hills.
Mm-hmm.
The most watched game on ESPNU that year. And the ball rolled around and didn't go in, and we go to overtime, and Felder got his fifth foul with 16 seconds going overtime, and we lost. And so that game had been the one that I would wake up at night, because that would have changed. That would have changed the amount of money that donors give Oakland. That would have changed the way, to beat Michigan State, number one in the country, when they're an hour from here. And, it just would have changed the perception nationally of Oakland basketball. It would have helped me get better recruits. It would have helped. And that was the game that I would wake up, you know.
Mm.
And if you go, like I said, if you go to pick a coach, you go to Jay Wright, he's not laying there thinking about all the national championships he won. He's thinking about the ones that he should have won or could have won.
How did the Kentucky win? How did things change for you after that?
Uh, it's I told our players before the game that this would be life-changing for them if you could win, and it changed all their lives. Every kid on that team's lives changed. I didn't realize how much my life would change. I went from being the old coach that's been at, the good guy, the old coach that uh, has been at Oakland forever, to, hey, this guy can't speak today. We can't get this guy. Call Kampe, he'll say yes, right? Now they're asking me to be the speaker. So that 15 minutes of fame, actually, it's way more than 15 minutes. I thought it was going to be 5 minutes, and it became 15, and now it's become 15 months, and it's changed I mean, I can't go anywhere. I can't, you know, um, yeah, it's crazy.
Coach, Coach, let me ask you a question then. So you can't go anywhere without somebody reminding you of that win, right? And what a great win, what an iconic win. It changed the players' lives. It even changed yours. And I guess my question is on this one. Like, no one's ever walking up to you now saying, Coach, why'd you call that timeout in the NC State game? Like, why can't we, as just individuals, why can't we just focus on that positive stuff and relish in that and be able to forgive ourselves for, like, the mistakes that we make?
No, people are asking me that.
Are they?
Oh yeah,
I was hoping not, Coach.
no, no. A great story. My guy by the name of Bill Larkin, a good friend of mine. Bill's probably one of the best donors I have at Oakland. He's well before we beat anybody. He was a great donor for mine. He and I play a lot of golf together. And last year we're playing in a tournament, and I had a putt, a golf tournament, and I had about a 10-foot putt, and just before the ball's going in, and just before it gets to the hole, it hits something, and it veers left, and it doesn't go in. We've all had that. If we're a player golfer,
Mhm.
we've all had that happen. And I walked up there and there was this little pebble on the green. And it hit the pebble and didn't go in. And the four of us, and they're laughing at me because I'm kind of pissed off about it, you know. And I say, if I had come up here and looked, you know, why didn't I come up? I'd come up there and looked. I would have seen that. I would have made that putt. And Larkin yells in front of everybody, goes, "Yeah, and if you hadn't called timeout, you'd been in the Final Four." So, you know, it's there every day, man. I hear it
Yeah.
every.
How about the consistency, coach? I think it's the most underrated mental skill. It's one of your values. Talk to us about like what does it require for athletes, coaches, individuals, like that consistency piece.
Well, I think that when I'm dead and gone, and hopefully, I hope some of my players will get together and talk about, you know, their time at Oakland when that happens. I think that the reoccurring theme that they'll talk about is, you know, the one thing that I've tried to teach them is that consistency is the hallmark of greatness. There's two things that I try and say 5,000 times during the course of a season with every team. Well, three. Consistency is the hallmark of greatness. There's two things that don't last in life: dogs that chase cars and teams that can't make free throws. All right. And then the third thing is everybody wants to be great until they find out what they have to do to become great. Those are the three things that I try and stress to every team I've ever coached. Um, you know, I don't want a guy that's going to score 34 and come back the next game with two, and then the next game 18, and then the next game he doesn't even play. I want a consistent effort, and the world wants a consistent effort from you. The world wants to know what they're going to get from you. Your parents want to know what you're going to get from you. Your wife is going to want to know. Your kids are going to want to know what they're going to get from you. Are you going to be there, and are you the same person every day? Your boss is going to want to know that. Nobody's going to want your great. Nobody's going to want your worst. Everybody's going to want that midline every day so I know what you are. And uh, I hope I give that to them as a coach. I hope that every day I'm the same. I'm not some, you know, high guy that's all excited one day and then as low as you can be the next day because, you know, I had to clean up dog crap before I came to practice or something like that. You know, something in life got to me and I came into practice and I'm taking it out on them. So I'm a firm believer in those three things, especially the consistency. I've said that since I was a young coach. I know in my bio, I think they even have that in there that the one thing I tell my team is that, and it's true. It is. I want a consistent effort. Just give me that. I don't need greatness. I don't need, you know, I just need I need to know who you are and then be that person.
Mhm. Coach, a couple more questions. In terms of that consistency, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it never seemed like you really had a four-win season. I mean, you were always still to manage and be consistent in terms of it. And could you just talk about that for a second?
Well, you know, I'm going to give you some credit on that because you're the first, in all the millions of interviews I've done, you're the first person that's ever brought that up. And it is like that is been one of the biggest driving forces in my that we've never not had double digit wins. You know, we've never, and sometimes I say that about, you know, when I'm when you talk about your employer and your school, and you know, I I'm not going to be critical here, but we're moving into a practice facility next month, finally. I mean, I've
Mhm.
fought for this for years upon years upon years. Our situation has been really bad here, facility wise. Our arena is great on game day, but behind it, it's really bad. I'm probably the only coach in the history of college basketball that's coached 42 years without a film room. We've never had a film room. I it's done in the new facility, and I went there last week, and I just sat down and sat in that thing for 15
Hmm.
minutes. Just look, I got my film room after 40 years, you know, and for a coach, the film room is like a scalpel for a surgeon, right? I mean, it
Hmm.
is. We've never had one. I've tried to get in and I finally got it, you know, and so you you look at those things and you're just happy that, I got one now and I'm going to be able to use it and things like that. And I don't know. I just excited about that. I've lost my train. I'm so happy about it. I've lost my train of thought on what the question was.
No, I love that, Coach. I mean, you think you might watch The Natural in there at all?
I probably will. I
Yeah,
probably will. I know I'm going to spend the next year. I'll probably sleep in there many nights.
yeah. The question was just on the consistency and never really having that single win season.
Yeah. So, you know, I've always wanted and it was really hard in recruiting in the old days. Recruiting's different now, and it'll never be the same because of the portal. But in the old days, I always wanted to stack my classes. I didn't ever want to have six seniors. I redshirted kids because I always wanted to be good. I always
Hmm.
wanted to be consistently good. If you're playing Oakland, they're good. And I what I started when I started on the film thing was I used to say around here that maybe we'd get a film room if we'd ever have a 4-26 season. You put two 4-26 seasons together, and maybe they'll realize how we need a film room. The problem with that is they'd also need a new coach.
Hmm.
So I never wanted I never wanted to go through that so that they thought they needed a new coach. But yeah, that that probably of all the things means more to me than anything is that, we play we play the toughest schedule in the country every year. I mean, our non-league schedule is, next year, our first two games next year. I just saw recently that the preseason picks next year, the way too early preseason pick is Purdue and Houston are 1 and 2, and that's who we open with, Purdue and Houston. So, every year we play a really difficult schedule. So the amount of wins we're going to get, but in league play, we got to have 10 league wins every year. And I think
Hmm.
the last 20 years, maybe 19 of the years or 18 of the years, we've gotten at least 10 league wins. And so that's that consistency thing we're talking about.
Are you at West Lafayette or is that a tournament?
Yeah, no, no, we're at West Lafayette. You
I'm going
got,
to be there, Coach.
I got your seats.
I'm going to be there. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that one now. Um, Coach, I wanted to ask you about Alan McCabe. Like, I love watching him play. Um, just because of his inside game. What's he like as a player? As somebody, being coachable and his potential.
Yeah, Alan was a guy that when we got him, he'd been injured a lot. And I think that and again, this is that new way, adapt or die of coaching. 15 years ago, Alan McCabe and I would have lasted about a week, and one of us would have killed the other guy. He might have killed me first because he's a lot bigger and stronger than I am, but I would have killed him. And this idea of finding out what you value and then working side by side. So Alan was always hurt, didn't practice a lot, and I just explained to him that's not going to work here.
Hmm.
And so when those things started showing up again 15 years ago, I would have just made him or yelled at him or screamed at him or called him names or whatever. Here this year, I just went to him and I would sit down with him and say, look, what do you value? Well, he's from Belgium, and his value is I want to go back to Belgium and I want to be if I can't make the NBA, which because he's a little undersized, you
Hmm.
probably can't. I'm going to go to Belgium and I'm going to make a lot of money playing basketball in Belgium. So all my conversations with him were when you do this, if you don't practice, a coach of a pro team you're gonna walk into the locker room after practice and there's gonna be a pink thing in your locker that says clean your locker out and you're gone. I'm going to speak to all these agents. I'm going to speak to all these people, and they're going to ask me, and I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell them the truth because I got players coming after you that if I lie about you, they'll never come get these players. And I'm
Hmm.
going to tell them that you get nicked up or injured, you're not going to practice. You're not going to fight through something. I'm going to tell them that you're the greatest kid in the world, but how tough are you really? And so I would have instead of screaming and yelling at them and, getting him mad at me and hating me because I called him a name, or which we used to do. Now I found out what he valued, and then I used his values, and he had a great year. I think he missed 2 practices all year, and those were because of his back. And um, he'd show up. I knew he was hurting because he's a big, strong, physical guy, so he gets beat up. I knew he was hurting, but he knew what I valued too, and he went out there. Now, would I tell him step out? You know, we met him halfway. Step out of this drill. You don't need to do this drill. And he had a great year, and now he's at Arizona State making almost $1 million a year playing basketball, which is the reality of mid-major basketball now. But because he went through that year and did the things he needed to do, and I won those battles with him in practice. I won those. And then he also saw that I'm going to run sets for him, that what I told him is true. We're going to, and we would talk a lot about where do you want the ball? And are you better on this block or are you better on that block? And then he would see that I would set up our offense to get him the ball where he said he wanted it. And when you can win that battle with a guy, you know, the other thing about practicing is, well, why make him? Well, because you can't be great unless you're willing to do the things that other people don't want to do. And
Right.
you can't be consistent if you don't practice every day. So those 3 things that I keep. And he started the season as a 40-some% free throw shooter. He ended the season in the 70s. So those 3 things, this idea of he got in there and he shot and he shot and he shot, and my staff worked with him and he shot and he shot and he shot. And so to me, he was a big win this year. I wish he would have come back for his year here, but I understand I couldn't pay him what he's getting paid at Arizona State.
Mm-hmm. So you were able to take what he valued, incorporated that with your own values and expectations, and communicated that, and that made all the difference then, as opposed to just having the top-down approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what we've been talking about through this whole
Yep. Yep.
30 years ago, it would have been my way or the highway. Now it's get next to arm in arm and figure it out together. And the thing is, no matter how these kids have been programmed, the product of their environment, who's been around them and told them what they're telling them, they still deep inside they're good kids and they want to have success. And if they believe that you want to help them have that success, they're going to listen to you. If they believe that you care about them, they're going to listen to you. And in the old days, caring about them was being, tough on them, tough love, right? And now you can still give them some toughness, but you got to find a different way to do it.
Well, it's awesome, Coach. Coach, I really enjoyed this. I just have one question in terms of like what question should I be asking that I haven't asked?
I think you've been tremendous. No one in all my years has asked me about, never having a 4-win season or 3-win season. So, and I value that. That's not something that I go around and talk, but when I'm with people and they say, "What are your biggest accomplishments?" That's one of the things I always bring up. We've never been bad. There's been years we weren't great or good, but we've never been bad, and I'm pretty proud of that.
No, I love that, Coach. No, it's awesome, Coach. Thank you again for the time here. Yeah, it was an honor, Coach. I really appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, golfers, you might not even know that you're looking for it, but this is the best golf sock that you can have. The golf sock. Their grip technology is absolutely stunning. I even use it when I'm running. That's how good these socks are. You're absolutely going to love it. It's like a golf glove for your feet. The golf sock. Click on the link.